Hi everyone, this video is intended for all students of the ServiceNow Application Development Fundamentals course. In that course, we build an application from start to finish, and part of the application involves developing a notification that will be sent out to all requesters of a loaner device to inform them that their device is ready to be picked up. You would have noticed that there are also a couple of challenge exercises as well to create 2 extra notifications. One, to inform the requester that the device is nearly ready to be returned. And second, to inform requesters when their device is overdue. In other words, when they haven't returned the device by the due date. So in this video, we're going to have a look at how to create those 2 extra notifications. Before we go ahead and create the 2 new notifications, let's quickly recap how we created the first one. So we created in total 5 different objects that work together to finally trigger the notification. So we started off with a system property that will determine when the notification will be sent, how far in advance of a loaner device being picked up. The second was an event, and that event was triggered to determine when exactly the notification will be sent. Thirdly, we created a scheduled job that actually runs and triggers the event by referencing a script include that contains the functionality for triggering the event, as well as to determine what records we should send the notifications for. And then finally, we actually created the notification itself that was triggered from the event. So just keep all of these objects in mind as we go ahead now and look at creating the 2 new notifications. Okay, so the first thing that we have here is a system property. Now, pay attention to the name, whether it's uppercase or lowercase or a mixture of both. That's important. Next, we have an event. Again, pay attention to the case of the event name, okay, because you'll need to reference it in a script, and case is important. Okay, so we have our pickup event. The next thing we have is a scheduled script. Now, in our lab, we modified this, if you recall, to include 2 functions from a script include. So we're actually calling 2 functions here. The first one here, get null pickup reminders, is used to what? It's used to obtain a list of records that are ready to be picked up, a list of devices that are ready to be picked up. We're going to send reminders to those requesters. Okay, and that is what the second function will do. It will be actually to trigger the notification. All right. And next, if you have a look at those respective functions in the script include, and we just scroll down here a little bit to this first one here, to get null pickup reminders. This one here obtains an array of all requests that need to be picked up. Okay. And then we also call the second function as well, send pickup reminder. Okay, so this is actually doing the work of triggering the notification in the form of an event here. Okay, you'll notice here the event here is being triggered. All right. Okay, and then finally, the notification that you have created will be triggered based on when the pickup event is triggered. Okay, if you look at the contents of your notification, again, you should have a line in here referencing a email script. Okay, that's the email script that you basically copied and pasted from the business rule and put into a mail script and made some minor modifications to it so that it would work and print out the password in your email. Let's have a look at that email script. So if we come here, this is basically a copy and paste from our business rule that we tested earlier that contains basically a direct call to the web service here. So actually calling using this URL here, and we're getting or making a query based on the asset tag of the current record, the configuration item that was specified there. Okay, so let's go ahead and test this first, make sure it's working still. So if we come to a device here, a request rather, I'm just going to remove that pickup reminder because I tested this earlier just to make sure it was working. So that field needs to be blank. That's part of the conditions in the script. So that will need to be blank in order for the event to be triggered. Importantly, with your testing, state needs to be ready for pickup. Okay, the item type needs to be laptop, and you need to have a configuration item here for which you have a password in your other instance. Okay, and I have already. Okay, so if I come back now to my scheduled script and then execute that, and now come back to my request, we have the timestamp here. If we go to our logs and refresh this, we can see a confirmation that we actually got a 200 response back, which is good, and we've got the password in there. And I've also printed out the entire object here that was returned, which means also that theoretically, hopefully, we should also have an email. So if I come to my list of emails, refresh this list again, this is the email, a device is ready to be picked up. Let's open it and take a look and preview the email, and we can see here the password has been generated here. So that's what you should have right now. Now, there was a challenge in the book to create 2 extra notifications. One for reminding the user to return the device within 24 hours. So within 24 hours of the end date, we should send a reminder email to the user saying, please return the device, it's due tomorrow or soon. And then the second notification would be to send an email when the device has not been returned, it's overdue, we need to inform the user to bring it back as soon as possible. So let's go back to ServiceNow Studio now and go to our script include. And if you had taken a closer look at this before, you would have noticed that there were actually functions in there to do precisely those actions, to actually generate the respective events that you need to trigger a notification to remind the user to bring the device back, as well as when the device is overdue. So essentially, you're just replicating what you have already performed, but to create 2 extra notifications and 2 extra events to trigger those notifications. So let's go ahead and look at our script include and find exactly what events we need to create. So if you go up to the top of the script include, we can see we're using this variable here, this reference to a pickup event right here. So the ones that we need for our 2 other notifications are these ones here, the return one, as well as the overdue one. You don't actually need this reminder event for our exercises here. We just need return and overdue. Okay, so let's go and take a quick look at the events that I've already created. So in my event registry, I've got one here called overdue and another one here called return. Okay, with the respective descriptions here. All right. Again, pay attention to the case of the event name. That's important because often if it's a different case, that's where you'll trip up. The event won't be generated. If the event is not generated, then your notification will not be triggered. Okay, so we need a new scheduled script for the return. First of all, let's take a look at that. Let's open up our existing scheduled job here because we can just make a few modifications to this and all work just fine. So I'm going to make a copy of this and do an insert. So I will just change the name here to LoanerUtils and then come down to our script here. Now we need to call 2 different functions here and replace the 2 that we've currently got for picking up the device. So to do that, let's just take a look at the script include once more. So we'll go to our script include. Now those 2 functions are actually all the way down the bottom here. If we go to the first one here, it's called get null return reminders. Now there is a very small error in this script actually. So if you try to just call those functions as they currently exist, they won't work, or the first one will not work. So if you take a closer look here, I've actually commented out the error and added in a correction. So in your script include, you will have this line here to get the temp date variable by calculating the notice time, which is the current time, and adding the return remind time. That won't work because you can see here we're actually adding some kind of empty string at the end here, and that will trip you up. So what I have done here is basically just use exactly the same variable and calculation that was in our original function for the reminders. So I've actually created another variable here called notice time, and then we've just added the return remind time, which is a reference to the system property that we created earlier. So that by default, that was 24 hours. And then I've added one more correction to correspond to that, so that the query here references that new notice time variable, because in the original it was a reference to the temp date, I think, and that didn't work. Okay, so just take a look at this script, take a screenshot of it, and modify your script include accordingly. So that's the first function that we need, get null return reminders. So I can take that, I'll just copy that. And the second one that we need is the last one here, send return reminder. Okay, again, which basically just generates the event and which triggers the corresponding notification that we still need to create. Okay, so let's go back to our scheduled script. This one here. First of all, I'm just going to do an insert and stay here, just to be on the safe side that I don't accidentally copy over the original record. And I'm just going to modify the names of these two functions here. So the first one here was get null return reminders, and the other one was send return reminder. So we'll just change that. Okay, and that's all we have to do. Okay, so I will save that. And the only other thing now is to create the notification. Now I've actually created this notification in advance. So if I come down here and open up the loaner return notification. Okay, we can see here in the conditions for the trigger, it's going to be triggered when that event is generated, that return event right here. Okay, and as for the content, well, you can just adjust this accordingly. You don't need to make a web service call. You don't need to obtain the password for this device. You just need to inform the user to bring the device back. So let's go ahead and test this now. I will go to my original request here. Two things to keep in mind. Again, pay attention to the conditions in the script include. Let's just quickly review them once more. So if we come here to the first function that we're going to call, we're looking up all records here with the state of 17, which is checked out, and where the return reminder date has not been set yet. Okay, and also importantly, where the end date is within the next 24 hours. Okay, so I'll come to my request here. Let me just check the date here. That's the 24th, so that's in a couple of days. So we need to make that a little bit earlier. So I'll make that tomorrow. And that time is within the next 24 hours. Just make sure your time zone is set as well. Makes it a lot easier to test. Okay, so if your time zone is set to your actual time zone and not to GMT time, then it'll make testing a lot easier. So, all right, so we'll accept that. And then the return reminder has not been set, so that's good. And we are ready to go. So I'll save this. One more thing before I forget, we need to change the state from ready for pickup to checked out, because that was also a condition in the script include. So let's save that. And now we can go back to Studio and our scheduled job and then execute that. And we should find that in our event log this time, not in the general log, which is the one I showed you earlier, the event log. If we just refresh that, we've got our return event that's been triggered here, which should also mean that we have our email notification also triggered. And this is the one here, return your laptop. Okay, so that's working as expected now. And now we can go ahead and create the final notification, which is to remind users to return their overdue devices if they haven't been returned by the due date. So again, we'll go back to Studio here. We'll just take our existing scheduled script and then make a copy of this and create the one for overdue devices. So before I do anything, let's do an insert, stay. And we'll need to go into our script include again once more, just to find the respective functions that we need to get the list of devices that are overdue, and then to trigger the event with the other function to generate the notification. So back to our script include. So the overdue functions are actually not in chronological order, so they're at the top here. So we've got our get overdue request, so that's the name of the function, the first one that we need to call. Okay. Again, if you have a closer look at the conditions here, we're looking at all devices that have been checked out where the end date has already passed. Okay, so that is the first one we need, get overdue request. So let's pop that in here. And then our second function is, let's come back. It's not this one here, time to remind overdue. It's the one after that, send overdue reminder. So I'll just copy that and put that in my script include right there. Okay, we can go ahead and save that. So it's one scheduled script completed. Okay, it's actually defaulted back to our return. Sometimes that happens in Studio. Just refresh the whole page. If you do an insert, sometimes it refreshes and shows you the old record. So if we come to our list of scheduled scripts and open up the one for overdue, that's the one. So just be careful, conscious again of what record you're working in. It's very easy to be working in the wrong record, and then errors will occur. Okay, your testing will fail. Let's go back to the script include. We just need to take a look at that one more time. And let's go to the, I think it's a second function here that we're using, the send overdue reminder. Again, just take a look here at the event that's being triggered here. Okay, it's this one here, this overdue event. What one is that? Okay, let's go back up to the top. This overdue event here is called overdue. Okay, so in the book, I don't think it actually makes mention of this, at least in the book that I have. So I've already gone ahead and created the overdue event over here. All right, so that's the one that will be triggered. That's the one that you need to use in your notification. Okay, so if we come back here, and I do believe I have a notification for this already set up and ready to go. Okay, again, no web service calls here, just some standard text here, just to remind the user politely to bring the overdue device back. And then importantly, the trigger here is that overdue event that is referenced again in the script include. So let's go ahead and test this. Let's go back to our original request here. The state is checked out. Now the end date will have to be before right now. So let's take a look at the time. So I'll just make that the 22nd, 11 o'clock. That should work just fine. Okay, and I might just make the start date a little bit earlier as well. Otherwise, our previous business rule that checked whether the start date is before the end date will fail. So that is looking okay now. We don't have, or it doesn't really matter actually, the overdue reminder, because that will be updated. We will actually have the ability to send overdue reminders every 24 hours. Okay, so let's do that. So you won't just get one overdue reminder, you may actually get more. Okay, so now that we've got that, let's go ahead and execute that scheduled job that we created, the overdue one. Execute. Okay, let's come back to our events once more. Refresh. We have our overdue event here now. That's looking good. And that should also mean, again, that we have our overdue reminder here, notification. Okay, so that's how you go ahead and create, basically duplicate what you've already created with your scheduled job. Just make some modifications to that for your return reminder and your overdue reminder as well, notifications. Create the respective events, create the respective notifications, and you're good to go. Okay, so thanks very much for watching.